So, Raph, there are a couple of places to start today. Might as well start with this Palace data poll because this was taken after the first one that's come out, you say, after the whole provincial Pablo Rodriguez scandal. And it's not good news for the Liberals or for Pablo Rodriguez.
Really not good news. So it's the very first poll we have since the beginning of this whole crisis at the Liberal Party. And what it shows, on top of like the regular numbers we hear, so it's a trend, always in politics, you're always looking for a trend. So the trend remains the same as to the PQ leading in the polls, 11 points ahead still of the Liberals, so 36-25. But what's interesting here is that Palace data poll also asked a question to the population, asking them, do you have a positive or negative perception of Pablo Rodriguez? And that is very interesting, and this is very, very bad news for him. 56% of responders said they had a negative perception of Pablo Rodriguez. This is up by 15 points since September, and only 13% have a positive view of Pablo Rodriguez. This is down 10 points. So major thing here, it shows the impact already that this whole crisis has had on the impression of the population of Quebec voters towards the Liberal Party, towards Pablo Rodriguez and his leadership at the moment, even though nothing has been confirmed. We know, we've seen this morning the photos of UPAC visiting Mauro Risky. It really smells bad for the Liberals, but there's nothing confirmed. It's just allegations so far. So we have to be very careful, but still, in crisis management, you want it to be over within 48, 72 hours. If it lasts longer than that, it could hurt your reputation on the long term. And here what we see already is that there's a major shift here in the population regarding Pablo Rodriguez and how people see him as a leader.
Yeah, and we're 11 days in, so much for day 3 of crisis management, right?
And there's no end in sight because Mauro Risky can't disclose any information according to what she says. There's investigations going on. There's validations. UPAC has not yet opened a formal investigation. They're validating some information, but if ever they were to move forward with an inquiry, that would be disastrous for the Liberals.
Let's talk about some actual breaking news this afternoon. So first of all, we had the big announcement today. Daniel Smith, Mark Carney, oil pipeline. It's been hinted about for so long. Their memorandum of understanding, which is going to take this pipeline, a lot of conditions attached to it, including approval from Indigenous people, from BC, etc. And boom. 2 hours later, Stephen Guilbeault, a former environment minister, former head of Equiterre, quits the Liberal Party as a minister. So we know he's the environment guy, and clearly this is something he couldn't stomach, and he's done.
He's done. He's done with that party. And I think it really shows the shift in the political landscape we are witnessing right now since the arrival of Mark Carney as leader of the Liberals and as Prime Minister. There's a realignment here with the Liberals, and it shows that some of those Liberals who joined the party under Justin Trudeau are no longer at ease within this party. And Stephen Guilbeault certainly is one of them. As you've mentioned, he had a long career with environmental groups, and he's not at ease with the announcement that was made today. The pipeline, yes, of course, but it's also attached to other measures. They're going to scrap the new cap that they wanted to impose on the oil industry regarding greenhouse gas emissions. They're going to potentially allow bigger oil tankers along the coast of BC to allow that oil, because we're talking here about 1 million barrels of crude oil, Alberta crude oil, that will pass through that pipeline to be shipped to Asia, to Asian markets every single day. So it's a huge project. It's essential for Alberta's economy. It's also, I would see this as a measure of national unity. There's growing threats right now in Alberta. There's a sovereignist movement, also a separatist movement that's growing in Alberta because there's a lot of discontent among the population. So to see Mark Carney, a Liberal Prime Minister, being able to make a deal with the Premier of Alberta, who's a very hardline conservative, that's uncanny. I mean, you would never have thought that possible under Justin Trudeau.
I was going to say, this must make the Conservatives absolutely nuts, crazy to see this kind of thing going on.
Absolutely. And yet again, I'm going back to the realignment of the Liberal Party. This is a very bad news for the Conservatives. If the Liberals can make deals now with the very hardline Conservatives out west, it's no good news for Pierre Poilievre, certainly. And we see now that the most, I would say, quote, I don't want to say that Guilbeault is a radical element, but the ones that are the most to the left within the Liberal Party are leaving or are not at ease with their new party's position and the leadership of Mark Carney, whereas on the other side you have the most moderate of Conservatives whom, as we have seen just a few weeks ago, are thinking about leaving the Conservative Party to join the Liberals. One of them has already crossed floor, but others were also having discussions with the Liberal Party. So there's a major realignment right now on the federal stage regarding party politics, and it's obvious because of Mark Carney's policies bringing the Liberals back to something that looks more like the Liberal Party under Chrétien and Martin than under Justin Trudeau.
So let's talk about something else that happened today. This is from Quebec. We had Jean-François Roberge introduce the next part of his secularism law. It's been, again, telegraphed for a while now, this idea, of course, of, no more prayer rooms in schools and what you can serve in terms of... And then the part of this, and I asked about this earlier on, this idea of this 3-year, if you will, it's kind of almost a moratorium to give these institutions a chance to adapt, or I don't fully understand that.
Yeah, well, maybe it's something that he considered necessary to let these institutions have some time to indeed, as you mentioned, adapt. I think there are some good things here too. I mean, if you look at the banning of public prayers, for instance, we have seen in the past few months some events that have generated tensions among our society. This is something that clearly the government had to act on. And yet again, let's not forget that this is a government that is in a very bad shape right now. They're in a very bad position in the polls. So they need to do things that will, first of all, deflect the public's attention from their problems, especially with what happened with the doctors recently. And they, most of all, need to bring back people who have left the party to join, for instance, to support the PQ or the Liberals for some of them. But most of all, I would think it's the CQ trying to appeal yet again to nationalists who fled to the PQ to try to bring them back in view of the next election.
See, that's the part I'm trying to wrap my head around. This idea that they left the CAQ to go to the PQ. They have different agendas here. You're only going to the PQ because separation is on the agenda. The CAQ's not dealing with that, right? They're doing everything to make it seem like the next best thing by introducing a constitution that's basically going to ignore the Canadian Charter of Rights. Mm-hmm. But that aside, this idea of cranking up the secularism issue, who is that? Like, who's buying into this? It's not already bought into what they've done.
I think it's meant to appeal to soft sovereignists, to nationalists, yes, for sure, but sovereignists who are within the PQ, not necessarily for sovereignty, but because of its stance on identity. And they want to bring these people back. Let's not forget the CQ, when it was established 12 to 13 years ago, it was a large coalition of people that came from parties that already existed. So half of them came from the PQ, half of them came from the Liberals. I remember when I was there, when we came to power, I say we because I was there at the time, when the Legault government came to power in 2018, most of my colleagues came from the PQ or the Liberal Party. They were not longtime members of the CQ. They were not people who fought for that party for many years. They came from other parties. And this is what you see still today around François Legault. Most of the people who surround him, who advise him on a regular basis, came from the PQ mostly.
And I would have thought they were in that camp already, right? I mean, I understand the CAQ we always say, plays to their base. And here's yet another issue as far as secularism goes. Yeah. I'm almost surprised, actually, in a sense, Raph, that they didn't just say this goes into effect next week and this is how it's going to be. Instead, they left this 3-year window in here, which is to show what exactly?
Maybe they didn't want to be accused of specifically attacking certain groups.
But they're going to be accused anyway.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. That's a very good question. Maybe the CQ government right now is fed up of being accused of being too radical in certain things, and they want to show that they're leaving some way to make it soft.
I don't think, as they say in English, they're reading the room very well on this one. And I like Jimeni's idea when we spoke earlier about this. He said, you know what, this 3 years, that's basically the CAQ saying, hey, you know what, I'll give you 3 years. It's time for you to leave Quebec. So just a different take.
Maybe that's the point. Or maybe we'll wait 3 years so we don't have to deal with that issue in the next election in 10 months from now.
Well, they could have said next year. There's an election coming up in October, right? So why 3 years?
Anyway,
what kind of magic number is 3 years?
If François Legault sticks as leader of the CQ, no matter what, this government will no longer be in power in a year from now. So is this really going to be implemented in the end? Who knows?
Is he staying?
I don't think he will.
Okay.
I don't think he will. I think he's leaving by the spring. They should be having a leadership election if they want to stand a chance at saving some of their seats.
Last thing, really quick. I'm running late on time here. Today, the Auditor General in Quebec referencing the economic update we had earlier in this week. Not all very impressed with what there was in here.
Not at all. Very critical of the economic update, especially on the path to going back to a balanced budget. I think it's necessary to have clearer answers from the finance minister on this. It's important for future generations. Yes, they put some more money in the Fonds de Génération to reimburse the national debt, but we need to go back to a balanced budget, especially in a situation as now, because we need to have some reserves if ever we were facing a major economic crisis in the upcoming years. We need to go back to this.
We will leave it at that. Raph, I thank you. I appreciate you coming in.
Thank you, Aaron.
I'm Dylan Playfair.
And I'm Tyler Smith.
We're putting loneliness in the penalty box by talking to some of our favorite athletes about the importance of friendship.
This is Bromance.
Bromance is brought to you by Charm Diamond Centers, proudly Canadian-owned and operated. Charm has been part of your love stories and bromances for over 50 years. And you can find Bromance on the iHeartRadio network or wherever you get your podcasts.